Hey everybody, it's Cam here. Today I'm going to review Reign and Ruin by J.D. Evans. Apparently, my voice is going to have a little bit of a hitch in it today. I apologize. I had a stomach flu yesterday, so apparently I'm not quite 100% yet, although I feel great now. Reign and Ruin is the first book in the Mages of the Wheel series. It's 420 pages long. It was published in 2020. And it won SPFBO 7. I've talked about that competition plenty now at this point, and I have an entire series of the SPFBO 9 books that you can see on my page as well. So hopefully we don't need to explain that again. When I first came back, I decided I was going to review all of the SPFBO winners that I missed. I did a few of the like 8 and 9 stars as well that were second or third place in the series. And when I found out Reign and Ruin was a romantasy, yep, you heard that correctly, romantasy, I didn't really think that I was going to enjoy this book all that much. I thought, well, it won, so clearly it must be well written. But I started to read it, and I'm like, man, this book's well written. I love the world building. I love the magic system. And suddenly, by the time I was finished, as we currently sit here with SPFBO 9 still going, it is now my favorite of the 8 SPFBO winners so far. And it came this close to being my favorite book I read this year. It just missed out to Daughter of the Beast by E.C. Greaves, which is a finalist this year. Its first rating that it got wasn't so hot, so it probably looks like it's still going to remain my favorite of the SPFBO winners. So I'm going to read the book blurb, then we're going to go into the world building, all that kind of stuff. When I get to the good, the bad, like I normally do, I don't really have a lot of bad on this one, so we'll talk about maybe what some things that could be considered bad, I guess. There is one thing that I think maybe could be included in that list, but let's go ahead and read that book blurb. I'll quit rambling and we'll get right to it. All magic is beautiful, she said, and terrible. Do you not see the beauty in yours or the terror in mine? You can stop a heart, and I can stop your breath. She is heir to a sultanate that once ruled the world. He is an unwanted prince with the power to destroy. She is order and intellect, a woman fit to rule in a man's place. He is chaos and violence and will stop at nothing to protect his people. His magic answers hers with shadow for light. They need each other, but the cost of balance may be too high a price. Magic is dying, and the only way to save it is to enlist mages who wield the forbidden power of death. Mages cast out centuries ago in a brutal and bloody war. Now a new war is coming. Science and machines to replace magic and old religion. They must find a way to save their people from annihilation and balance the sacred wheel. But first, they will have to balance their own forbidden passion. His peace for her tempest, his restlessness for her calm. As I mentioned, this is a romantasy, but the world building and the magic system are what really reined me in. I think that the way that I'll start this book off is I'll talk about the politics and the geography of this world, then we'll get into the magic, and then I'll talk about the 2 point of view characters a little bit more. What we have here is a Middle Eastern inspired tale. Our author, J.D. Evans, she was stationed in the Middle East in the military. I actually don't know if she's still in the military or not, but she was at the time. But she was stationed in Jordan, I believe, for several years. So what we have is kind of think of their world a lot like our own world. We're told that in the north we have a big area called the Republic. We don't see the Republic at all, but they don't have magic. They use technology. They have managed to unify the north. And anytime a mage or anyone that can use magic, ends up in the Republic, they kill them. So that's kind of like the big existential threat, is that the Republic is getting really powerful. Our story takes place mostly in... our story will actually take place mostly in a country called Tamar. It's kind of like on the coast, and then there's a big mountain range. On the other side of the mountain range is Sarkum. Tamar is where magic originates. It is where magic's also still the most powerful. 200 years before the story starts, there was a big purge for some reason of death mages. There's 6 different magical types that I'll talk about here shortly. When the Grand Vizier was a death mage, he was second to the Sultan. He ended up leading a rebellion. They broke apart from Tamar because of that purge, and so now what used to be a unified sultanate is split into two. We have, like I said, Tamar, where magic originates, and Sarkam. Sarkam still has magic, but it's not as powerful because they don't have that area where magic originates. And at this point, they're kind of in trouble over there in Sarkam. Their military is very powerful, but it doesn't have a ton of magic. They rely on basically being horse warriors. They fight a group of nomads who kind of think of them as like the Mongols, only not the power of the Mongols. It kind of keeps their conventional military always honing their skills. So their conventional army, along with their little bit of magic, has allowed them for the last couple hundred years to basically have a stalemate with Tamar. Even though Tamar is far richer, their people are doing a lot better than they are in Sarkam. Sarkam also now has like a crop blight, so things aren't going super well over there. Our two main characters, the whole story is basically going to be them trying to figure out how to unify the two countries that are split apart still, and save themselves from the Republic who wants to wipe out all magic. The real heart of this story for me was that magic system. And let me talk about it. I'm going to bring my notes in real quick. I know that's not the best policy here, but I think it's going to be the easiest way for me to talk about it coherently and not have it take 10 minutes for me to explain. Hopefully I'll have the graphic up right here that'll help a little bit as well. So the magic system's broken down. They call it the wheel. That's why we have the Mages of the Wheel series. It's broken into 6 spokes. You have 6 magical houses. So air is the first, water is the second, creation or life is the third, earth is fourth, fire is fifth, and destruction is sixth. You can also be born with no magic. In that case, you're called a void. If you're born with magic, there's also several different levels, and you're born in a level. You can't get more powerful by training or whatnot. You can get more powerful within your specific level, depending on how, what your mental fortitude and things like that are. But if you are the lowest level, you're never going to become the middle level, right? So the first level is called Evolve. That's the weakest. And they can only cast simple spells, and they must use spoken spells. So they have to be able to actually say the spell. The next is Deval, who can speak their spells or use runes or sigils that they can draw to cast more powerful and complicated spells. The next is Sival. They can speak, draw, or think their spells, and they can use more complicated magic. The lowest level is the most common, and they become decreasingly less common as you move up. And then there is one more level. They're called a Chara-A. Only one mage of each of those 6 houses exists at any time who's a Chara-A. They are like a force of nature unto themselves. They're so much more powerful than all the other mages. And also an important note is that they're born to, their parents aren't the same. So our main character, Makram, is the Chara-A of the Death House. Well, his parents both have to come from the 5th house, so the fire. So his parents are both fire mages. That's kind of the way that magic system works. So as I mentioned, the two countries split apart because of people hated those death mages. They thought that they were killing people. I don't think that anything really actually happened, from what I can tell. Specifically that led to this. It was just a general thought that death mages were bad. But the way the magic wheel works, though, is that you have to have those two in opposition to each other, or the other one doesn't exist. So when they got rid of all the death mages, well, then life mages quit being born. So it kind of ruined that as well. So that's an issue in Sarkam, though, where they can't heal people using life magic because there are no death mages. Let's get into our actual story and plot line. Let's talk about the two main characters real quick. So we have Naomi. She is an air mage. She's that second most powerful level. She's very intelligent. Her father is the Sultan. But he is basically dealing with dementia that is caused by his air magic. He has a special ability that only like the most powerful of that second level are born with, where he can actually like go into people's bodies basically and tell if they're telling the truth or not. So the way that this is mostly used that we see in the book is like if someone has been condemned to die for murder or something and they say that they didn't do it, well, then he can go into their minds and see, for sure that it did or didn't happen. But the problem with that is that over time it can cause you to lose like your own self, basically. And so this has caused him to have like bouts of dementia. Sometimes he will be lucid, but it's not happening very often at this point. And so his daughter Naomi, she's very intelligent, very... if she was a man, there would be no question that she was going to become the next sultan when her father finally dies. But because she's a woman, she's expected to marry into another powerful house and for her husband to be the one that actually rules, and she'll just be, putting out babies. Well, she doesn't want to do that. Her family has always had male heirs, and they've always ruled, since centuries before the break, and they have ever since. And her father wants her to rule. But obviously, we're having some issues here. The current Grand Vizier, who is a fire mage, fire mages tend to be really fiery personalities, if you will. In direct opposition to air mages, they don't like each other just, by nature. The Grand Vizier wants her to be married to his son, and then he wants to basically rule the country through his son, who doesn't really care about ruling. He just kind of wants to be, do whatever he wants to do kind of deal. And then on the other side, we have Makram, who is actually the brother to the leader of the other country, Sarkam. He is the Chara of the death mages. So when he ends up going to try to talk to Naomi about how they need to unify, he's doing it in opposition to his brother, who's a fire mage, and who's also really jealous of him because he is the Chara, and his brother, the one that's actually the ruler, is like a really low-level fire mage, and he doesn't like people who are more powerful than him. So we end up, that's where our big conflict is going to be that both Makram and Naomi, who will develop a relationship, that's where the Romantasy comes in, they want the two countries to unify, but Naomi has to fight to even be able to rule in her own right because, a woman has never ruled before, and Makram isn't actually the ruler of his country, but he has been like the head of the armies. He's obviously very powerful, and he wants, them to unify where his brother doesn't. So that's the big conflict in the story, is them trying to figure out if they can have a relationship as well as if they can, become powerful in their own right and unify the two countries to fight against, unite and present a united front against the Republic to the north. So that's the world, the magic, and all that stuff. Let's talk about the bad, the good, and my final thoughts. Now, when it comes to the bad, obviously, if I have this book as my second favorite book I read in 2023, and my favorite of the so far 8 SPFBO winners, obviously I didn't think there was a lot of bad. And the thing that I'm going to talk about real quick was not bad for me, but I could see somebody having an issue with this. There are info dumps. Naomi and Makram will spend time in like a big library at one point, and that's where we'll get a lot of like the telling about the magic system and the wheel and how they have to be in alignment and things like that. I loved it. I thought it was really well done, but I'm one of those people that loves a school scene, right? I like info dumps if they're done well and they're interesting to me. I love that world building, right? And so you get those info dumps are a lot of times where world building happens. So I thought it was great, but I can see people not liking that info dump, whether they're sitting in the library talking about their magic and stuff, right? In terms of the good, I loved the magic system. I loved the way the world building was done. I liked how, even though we're dealing with like 3 countries, even though we're really only dealing with one for the most part, there is a little bit of stuff in Sarkam, but most of it happens in Tamar, in the capital. It's really easy to understand the map. You could see the map one time and you're never going to have an issue again. I loved the magic system, the wheel, the splits of the magic system. I just thought that it was just so well done, and I really, really enjoyed it. I love how like the whole way of life in Sarkham is, split up because of that magic system. You have like your earth mages that can do a lot of building and things like that. Air, fire, all the things, right? They can do specialized things, and the whole society is built around it. Then in terms of the two main characters, I really like both of them. Naomi was an awesome female character. She's really intelligent. She is ruthless in her own right. There is no, like temper tantrum, issues that sometimes people have, like they'll say with female characters. Having a female writer, I'm sure, makes a big difference there. I really liked Makram as a main character as well. He's super powerful, but he knows that like he has to be, play second fiddle to Naomi. And I don't really feel like there's even like a ton of issue where he has, any doubt that he needs to be second fiddle to her, right? If he's going to unite things. And I really thought that like that was a well written male character in terms of like who's clearly more powerful, but knows that, that the woman that he grows to love and that he wants to unify things with, that she's the one that has to have the power. I thought that dynamic between them was done really well. I loved the magic system, all that stuff, right? Like there's just so much to enjoy about this book. I have read book 2 now, and I will say that you get different main characters in book 2. The two main characters in this book are in the next book, but they're not the point of view characters. You have 2 new ones, and I believe that's going to be the case with book 3 as well. So, it's a great thing that the magic system and that world building is my number 1 thing, and that the characters are my number 2 or 3. Because if that was what I solely loved about this, then I would have been really disappointed about it in book 2. So it is something I just want people to know. That you have different characters in each of those first 3 books. Getting into my final thoughts on it, I just loved everything about this book. I really didn't think that I was going to when I started this, right? Like it's a romantasy. I've never read romantasy in the past, and I think that as a general rule, people tend to just dismiss romantasy as like second rate, or that like it's not real fantasy, right? Like just kind of like the same way that romance novels have never had like a mainstream success or mainstream respect, right? A funny little fact, my mom actually, when I was a kid, wrote several romance novels, and it's just kind of funny to think about that. She actually had a chance to go more of a mainstream publishing if she decided to, if she would have been willing to like change things up, but she didn't. It's a big long story that we don't need to get into, but it was one of those things where I kind of think like, man, my mom could have been like a big writer back in the day. But this book, though, like the romantic element of it really is secondary to like everything else that makes this just an awesome fantasy novel. I've read book 2 now, or I guess I'm actually about 80% into book 2, and I'm really enjoying it as well. I definitely think that I loved the first 2 characters a little bit more than the next 2, but still a good book. This one, like I said, it was just a tiny bit away from being my favorite book of the year. And if I hadn't just liked the more fantastical element of Daughter of the Beast, then this one probably would have been my book of the year. So just awesome. Enjoyed every bit of it. I think I read it in like 1 or 2 sittings because I just couldn't put the book down. And this next one I'm almost done with as well. And I definitely will read book 3. Definitely give this one a try, even if you don't, think that you're a Romantasy fan. This one was obviously one of those hard 5s, being on my top 8 books of the year. And I'm looking forward to reading more stuff by J.D. Evans. Hope you guys all had a wonderful Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate. And look forward to continuing on in this next year of 2024.